Hello, welcome. Good evening on a Tuesday evening, and some updates from the situation in Ladakh. Of course, joining me is my colleague Surya Gangadharan, editor of StratNews Global. And of course, through the day, all of you would have got the Indian Army statement and what happened on Monday evening in Chushul. But just to update the current situation in Ladakh, the brigadiers on the ground between on both sides, India and China, are speaking to each other at the Moldo Chushul meeting point after Monday's tension, where the uh, warning shots were fired when there was an attempt by the Chinese to come up on a peak, which has been now under Indian control since 30th of August. If you can have that map coming up, I just want to explain a bit of that geography where the current standoff and current tension is happening. The Mukpari, Gurung Hills, Pangur Gap. So if you see that now, the Chinese post at Black Top and Helmet Top are the Chinese post in red, and the rest of the blue are the Indian post. The Spangur Gap is where the current standoff of tanks is happening. But Monday evening, when the Chinese tried to come up the the post, and that is at Mukpari. If you can see next to the Magar Hill, north of this place, north of Rizangla, a bit closer to the Chinese side or the Spangur lake, which is there. Now the LAC, the Chinese perception of the LAC is from Finger Four, as you are aware, and the Indian perception of the LAC, as you can see, east of the Helmet Top, on the northern bank of Pangangso, is at Finger Eight, and that's where I think now the Indians have taken control of the heights, starting from the Gurung Hill, as you can see. Then the Spangur Gap comes. There is Magar Hill. There is Mukpari, which is the highest peak on the LAC at that point in Chushul. And then there is Rizangla and Richinla, where Indian forces are stationed in high strength. India, of course, issued a statement this morning, as you are aware, that at no stage has the Indian army transgressed across the line of actual control or resorted to use of any aggressive means, including firing, is what Indian army has said. It is the PLA that has been blatantly violating agreements and carrying out aggressive maneuvers, while engagement at military, diplomatic, and political level is in progress. In fact, the final paragraph of the statement is very interesting. The Indian Army is committed to maintaining peace and tranquility. However, is also determined to protect national integrity and sovereignty at all costs. The statement by the Western Theatre Command is an attempt to mislead their domestic and international audience. I think it's quite aggressive compared to what Indian statements have been in recent past. To say that the Chinese Western Theatre Command is actually doing these press statements to impress their internal audience and the international audience is something that the Indian Army has not done before. And I think this is something that is a change of pattern from the Indian side. But the purpose of today's program is not to give you the latest update, which in any case is a fluid situation right now. As I said, the brigadiers on both sides are talking. I'm joined by my colleague Surya Gangadharan, as I said, because we've dug up some old documents that are available publicly, of course, which also talk about the situation 362. Surya, if you can tell us a little bit about these documents that were available in public domain but have not been discussed too much. If you can tell what exactly are those.
Well, these documents relate to an exchange of perspectives by the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi and the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and they date back to 23rd July 1962, at the time when the conflict was kind of getting towards a proper exchange. And it's almost surreal, when you look at you look at the pattern of Chinese accusations against India, basically intruding into Chinese territory and firing. Here's something for your reference. A detachment of Indian troops crossed the boundary and approached the Chinese frontier post, located at a certain latitude and longitude. And they give the date also, July 16, 1962. And suddenly, fired two shots at the said post around 1400 hours on the same day. The Chinese guards did not return the fire. They go on in this vein, citing successive days when it happened. And you have the Indian repost, which says that on the date you mentioned, July 16th, when you claimed Indian troops intruded into Chinese territory and fired on you, on that day, the coordinates you're given are actually Indian territory and Indian posts. So it can only mean that you have entered into our area and fired on us. So this pattern is kind of repeated, and I think what we are seeing today is largely again, a repeat of that Chinese line. Maybe it's a tried and trusted line, but it seems to work for them.
Yeah, in fact, I was also looking at the same note. Now, if you look at the note on 4th August 1962, given by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Beijing, then used to be called Peking, it talks about, in disregard of the repeated protests of the Chinese government, the Indian side has not only refused to withdraw its troops, which have intruded into the Galwan River Valley in Xinjiang, and menacingly surrounded the Chinese frontier guards there, but set up another military strong point on Chinese territory south of the Galwan Valley. Now, this is what they constantly repeat, that they make a claim, then they accuse the other side of doing what the other side may not have done, gone into their territory, and then they start protesting and playing victim, is what basically the Chinese have been doing for years. Not right now, but in 1960, also they did the same thing. As we are saying, then as now, China claimed Indian territory as its own.
Yeah. In fact, I wonder if kind of language used and the kind of manner in which the entire flow happens of the Chinese narrative, is it actually meant for a domestic audience? Because I'm not sure an international audience would really be convinced by the kind of narrative the Chinese are putting out, given the fact that we know so much about how Chinese propaganda works and how controlled the media environment in China generally is. I mean,
Exactly.
what sense?
In fact, we have that map, which is a moving map, which we had done some weeks ago, about how the creeping advance of the Chinese from between 1959 and 1962 kept on coming westward. Now, this is the map. This was something that we had done earlier. Now, if you look at it, that the area occupied by the Chinese in Aksai Chin, the red marking is what they did between 1959 and 1962. In fact, there is another map. If we can have that map again playing the full way, if producers can get that. In fact, that yellow line. Now, if you see this is the yellow line. Then comes the red line, and then there is a green line up to which the Chinese advanced in on 20th October 1962, which was the massive attack. And then they withdrew. Surya, if you remember, they withdrew unilaterally on the 21st. Now this is the one that you will see here. Uh, See, this is how it used to be. This is the yellow line, which was the line of actual control in November 59. Then they advanced between 59 and 62, September 62, to the red line. And when the attack came, the green line came further west, which they reached on October 20th, 1962. And then on 21st November, they went back to the red line, saying we are going back 20 kilometers. So basically, their claim of 1959 and 62 remain. And that's something that now they are trying to revive in Ladakh, because they think that India is building infrastructure and it can project power to the Aksai Chin Road, which is their highway 219. And the irony is, Surya, this road is beyond which the Indians is to actually go and patrol at Lanakla and the other places. Now,
That
you
is the
will see,
yellow line. You have to come up to the yellow line or the red line?
no, beyond the yellow line is to go to the east. In fact, yeah, exactly. Now these green spots that you see, the Lanakla, this one, the Indian patrols, at least nominally, on a token basis, used to go to those places. Now, just imagine how much territory was claimed by China between 1959 and 1962. And of course, in 62 they claimed this territory. So this is how the pattern has been. But this time, what has happened is when they came forward, they were immediately given a face-off at Galwan, at PP-14, at Depsan, at Finger 4 and 8. So the area between Finger 4 and 8 is actually pittance. If you see the kind of area that was lost in those 3 years between 59 and 62. But there are other patterns that you were talking about between what was there in past and what is there in present.
Yeah, because the point I want to make is when they went back at the end of hostilities in October 62, November 62, we are now only moving up to that line where they actually hostilities ended. We are not going forward.
No, we are not. We are not, because we've taken upon ourselves to say that the line of actual control is where the Chinese had come up to in 1962, and then they went back on 21st November after declaring unilateral ceasefire without giving up the claim. See, that's the important point. They did not give up the claim to those territories which they came, like you can see now. The green line will come. The area between green line and the red line is what they gave up, or unilaterally went back to the red line after coming up. Yeah. So therefore they are saying we're only coming to the green line, which is what we had come to. If you see the current statements, actually, we have that some of the information that we want to put out, which our producers will put out now, which you had collected. The pattern this time, from May onwards, is something, those information supers that we put out. Now, can you speak about this a little bit?
Because I've been going through these references from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, and the repetitive use of words like provocative, and intrusion by India, and opening fire on Chinese positions. I think largely we are seeing the same thing play out now over what's happened in the last few days in Spangor Gap and other places, and somehow the Chinese appear to have institutionalized that narrative, the use of language. Perhaps they even trained to do the same thing. It may not be very convincing, perhaps, to an international audience, but it tells you exactly where they're coming from, and the fact that they remember, what they did and what they want to do. It's a different matter that they've been stopped, but
they have been stopped, certainly. And in fact, if you see the way the other statements are there from those times of 1960 or 62, that year, this is how they used to do this. In 62, China accused India of intruding into their territory, firing on Chinese posts, as we discussed. If you get the next point, similar accusations are being made now.
Yeah, another point, Nitin. If you look back at Doklam in 2017, at that time the Chinese appear to have lost it completely. You even had the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing accusing us of all kinds of things. There were insults aimed at Indian leaders, and we haven't seen that same level of perhaps insulting, official insults coming through. But perhaps Global Times has taken on that role. I mean, the latest thing that we've seen on Twitter tells you that perhaps the Global Times has been briefed by their own people in Beijing. So that's another pointer to how deep perhaps this has gone within the Chinese establishment. And that's a point I think take note of.
Yeah, in fact, they use all kinds of warfare. I mean, apart from psychological, legal, and then there is the information warfare. And today, if you saw, there was an article somewhere from some third country media house where they raise a question: has Prime Minister Modi lost control of India's armed forces? I mean, a laughable thing in the Indian context, but can because their own pattern of information warfare of their own people is that the PLA now controls the narrative, it seems.
Uh-huh. No, another point you were making, Nitin, that China's Western Theater Command is issuing press notes. Now, I would presume that PLA being the, controlled by the Communist Party, there would be some kind of an intermediary or perhaps some civilian setup, maybe the foreign ministry through which these press notes come. But it's being issued directly. So is the PLA running the show now? Are they reporting directly to Xi Jinping? I mean, okay, he controls it. But is this how it is?
Looks like, and I think that now they're not shy of yeah, the pattern being visible to others, because in any case, the PLA has always been the army of the party.
Yeah.
It's a a kind of a mafia, or let's say a militia of the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist
Yeah.
Party, and therefore they don't at all report to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and therefore they are if you can see this comment coming from somewhere by Srinivas Ganeshan. He's talking about is there a case of chaos within the PLA, and is it something that we should be aware of? That possible that today the party or Xi Jinping may not have full control on the PLA. That could be one possibility. The second could be that the PLA is now calling the shots and is therefore being more than aggressive ever before. They've never been so aggressive.
So they've been given free rein. That's what we have to assume.
It would seem so, and like if you can see this question, for instance, or a comment, they're saying, in fact, the comment that we are making, it underscores the fact that the hawks have, dominating China's narrative or China's decision making, and in the authoritarian system, the communication is very restricted. So maybe Xi Jinping is not getting the full kind of 360-degree view that he should be getting about what's happening. But the PLA seems to be determined, because I can't see a way out of this
Yeah.
heightened tension.
Yeah.
Because there's no
Exactly.
climb up.
Where is the way out? Because if the PLA narrative is that they are dominating this entire thing, when the reverse is actually the truth, then it's again like the Pakistanis, the way they do it. They claim all kinds of things, and then the reality hits the people later.
That's right.
The situation seems to be playing out here.
In fact, the problem is, and this is a worrying factor, which I think we should flag here. While the Indian Army is in full control of the situation on the ridge line that it has occupied since August 30th, the worry in the people's mind, those who are aware of the situation, is that it's so tense, and like the armies on both sides are sitting on a tinder box. One small tactical incident or a firing mistake by mistake from either side might have strategic implications, and that's something that one must look at. The possibility, and therefore I think the attempts to dial down the tension. Today's statement by India is actually very firm, very mature, and hopefully, when Foreign Minister or External Affairs Minister Jaishankar meets his counterpart in Moscow, which is, I think, on the 10th, maybe some. But again, what do you think? If the MOFA or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is not in control or has no say, is there any hope that
Yeah, because if Xi Jinping is listening only to his generals, and the foreign ministry is basically following the PLA narrative, which is what it appears to be, it means that it's a bit of a rock and a hard place here. The PLA is being left to the PLA to determine what happens on the ground. And like it or not, an army is an army, and they've been losing face over a number of weeks during this confrontation. Not by the fact, of course, that they lost many more men than perhaps we did during that fisticuffs.
Galwan plan? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, in the Galwan Valley. So the PLA now is the ultimate arbiter of what is going to happen on the ground. I mean, God help us out. It doesn't seem to be any restraint.
No, I mean, that is the worrying part, and also the fact that I don't know how the PLA has miscalculated the entire the war game or whatever they had done, because they should have seen that 1967 onwards, and this is the week when the Nathula clash happened. Remember, in
Yeah,
September.
absolutely.
1967 in Nakula. The Chinese military pressure has never worked on India, be it in 1967 or 86, 87 in Sundarangchu, Wangdung area, Himachal Pradesh, or Doklam in 2017. It has never worked. And yet the PLA has carried on with the same pattern as it was doing in 1962. So, it's something that beats logic really, and sort of amazes me.
Probably they've fallen victim to their own propaganda. They're not seeing anything beyond what they're putting out, which means they may have lost the plot. And but then it increases the uncertainties on the ground. We don't know how those guys are going to react in the next coming days.
And yeah, so the anger is palpable in the PLA rank, and of course, therefore, the heightened tension. We don't know where it is going to end, and we are no soothsayers or crystal ball gazers. But let's end this program on this note that India has issued a very mature statement, notwithstanding global times aggressive and sometimes even derogatory statements, or
Yeah.
the Western theater commander saying what he's been saying, or his spokesperson saying that that was a laughable thing by Global Times, that don't cross the line. The line has already been crossed, so let's wait and watch what happens on the 10th of September in Moscow between the two foreign ministers. I'm
Yeah.
sure there is a channel of communication being opened, but at the moment, all that we have to report to our viewers here, those who are watching and those who will watch later, is that the situation is worrisome. It is on a knife's edge. And I think, as Surya has been saying, and maybe I'll give him the last word. If you have to look ahead, say 10 days from now, what would you think will happen?
Well, one hopes that there is agreement to disengage, and but the problem still remains. What guarantee is there that these guys will respect whatever disengagement we agree to? They've violated every agreement that they've signed with us. There are no guarantees with them. There is no trust left. So I wonder, even if there is a disengagement, what does it really amount to?
Yes,
So
that's
more
one. And the second, and the second question is that, is there something happening inside China that is driving all this? Is there some incident, some development that we don't know of, because it's a closed society, very opaque society and opaque system? Is it that which is driving the aggression on the border? Is something that is a question that we must ponder and maybe
Yeah.
come back to answer or speculate upon in the next program. But until the next time, do keep watching us on StratNews Global. And, of course, keep sending feedback and like us on our social media platforms. We will strive to bring you authentic, fast, and of course, reliable information. Until the next time, it's goodbye. Thank you, Surya.
Thanks.